Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. Hope you're all doing great, and welcome to this new video right here on the markets. We're doing a little bit of an urgent/emergency update. The New York session, the US session has just opened 20 minutes ago. Of course, this morning basically started in the Asian session earlier. We had the largest liquidation event, at least in the last year, but probably longer. It's a little bit difficult to get the data. So I wanted to talk about what's the status quo, what's going on right now with Bitcoin, with XRP, with Ethereum. What can we expect over the course of today going into tomorrow? How I'm going to do that in this video, which I'll try to tell you everything you need to know. There's no major news that you need to know at this point of time. There are some headlines regarding Russia and Ukraine, and there were some headlines earlier regarding China and their stance on crypto, or at least their stance on tokenization. I don't think those things are too relevant for the situation in the market right now, so I will not talk about those, but I do know they're going on, right? And I evaluated those. I think they're not relevant for right now. So what I wanted to start off with is the general fundamentals. How are the general fundamentals in the financial markets right now? They're fine. The S&P 500 opened a little bit lower, but is rallying and ultimately is nowhere near getting into a downtrend. So that's great. The volatility index opened a little bit higher, is decreasing right now. That's great. Gold is rallying. Who cares? The dollar strength index has recovered, but ultimately is still very bearish. And then if we take a look at something more specifically for Bitcoin, if you take a look at the Coinbase Bitcoin premium, that is still at a massive premium right here. So all of those things are not bearish for the markets. Although I do want to say, so based on the fundamentals, and I said that in my premium feed this morning as well, based on the fundamentals, I cannot be bearish on these circumstances. Based on what I know about liquidation events like these, I also cannot be bearish. If you take a look at most of the liquidation events like these, we in the couple of days after that, we bottomed out. All right, so based on my research on past events like these, in combination with the fundamentals, I have to tell you that I think it's most likely we are going to be bottoming out here. And that, or at least that we're close to bottoming out, right? We can still have a spike down lower with lower volume, with a higher RSI, form some sort of a bullish divergence. But overall, that is what I think right now, right? So when I'm talking about Bitcoin, based on the fundamental situation, based on what has previously happened after events like these, I'll have to tell you that I think it's most likely that, if we look at the daily time frame here on Bitcoin, that potentially we can still spike down into 111,000. The area right there is a very strong support level, but that ultimately I do think we are bottoming out right here. Those are my thoughts. The one thing that, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically about XRP and Ethereum in a moment. By the way, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden I expect us to rally again. What happens very often is that after a major liquidation event like this, the price does bottom out relatively quickly, which is what I expect, but then it remains stable for a bit. I said it earlier today in one of my videos, but there very often is a bit of PTSD in the markets after an event like this. Now, the one thing that I do want to talk about before we talk about my specific thoughts on Ethereum and XRP and some altcoins, I do also want to talk about some altcoins that I think have gone through this the best, all right, that are holding up the best. There's two things that I want to say. First of all, Monday is historically quite bearish, so I would still be quite cautious right now. The US session has just opened, and so far it's not bad. As you can see, it's rallying up. So it's not bad, but ultimately today I would be extremely careful. Normally it's good to be careful after such a move, but I would be extremely careful right now. And then second of all, one of the key things why I'm still a little bit cautious myself as well is the fact that we do not really know what happened, right? So that is quite different from other liquidation events. Other liquidation events, we normally do know, this happened or that happened, and now we don't, all right? So that's why, if we get some bad news over the course of today, and that's the reason, we could still definitely spike down lower. So be prepared for that, but ultimately, I still think we're going to form a local bottom. Now, what does that mean for XRP? For XRP, that means that I think the local bottom is right here between 2.8 and 2.85, which we are beautifully reclaiming right now. Hopefully XRP will be able to continue that reclaim. I do think it will be able to get that reclaim. Ethereum, I would stay away from for now. The key level that Ethereum needs to reclaim is 4,300 and 4,250. And if I compare the recovery so far of Ethereum compared to the recovery of XRP and Bitcoin, Ethereum still is relatively weak, right? So ultimately, I do think that Ethereum will be able to reclaim, but I'm the least certain about that. So be aware of that. Now, when we're talking about altcoins, there's a couple of altcoins that I think have recovered the best. First of all, the altcoin of the week, Aster, is holding on relatively well. Do I think this can rally again? It's a possibility. Would I trade this myself? I'm not certain, but it's at least worth it to keep your eyes on this. Then we have AVAX. AVAX is holding on incredibly well. As you can see, we had a very deep spike down to the yearly rolling VWAP right here, but ultimately, you can see that the daily time frame candle is now closing above the 382 fib. So incredibly strong. In that same category, Near also has a good chance today to still close above the value area high of this previous range on the daily time frame, which means that the daily time frame will actually still support a breakout, which is also incredibly strong. So then we've talked about Near, we've talked about AVAX, and right now, I mean, there's a couple of coins that are recovering quite well. Jasmy is quite strong, Hedera is quite strong. I'm not certain if those have a lot of strength. I'd say stick with AVAX and Near, and there might be something else, but not much. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on the situation in the market right now, what to expect, what the different possibilities are, both for Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and some altcoins. And I will make sure to keep you updated on everything that comes out as soon as I can, right? So that includes that if we get some news and some more intel, some more information about what happens, I'll make an update on that as well. But those are my thoughts for now. Thank you for watching. Take care and bye.